Olympus has fallen. Wait, that's not right. White House, this is the review for White House Down. The second White House gets taken over by baddies, everyone dies, there's only one hero left to save the day. After Olympus Has Fallen. Starring Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx. Now, I will be comparing White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen a lot in this review because I really like Olympus Has Fallen. Antoine Fuqua, he directed this movie. He directed the movie really well. Olympus Has Fallen, that is. It was sort of realistic, and action was real, and really visceral and intense. And Gerard Butler was superb in this movie. But White House Down is the story of John Cale, budding secret Capitol Police, wants to be in the Secret Service person who just happens to be in the right place at the right time when baddies take over the White House. Sounds familiar, anyone? Now, this movie is the latest masterpiece from Roland Emmerich, the guy who brought us 2012, The Day After Tomorrow, and the absolute masterpiece 10,000 BC, which is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And this movie is not as good as Olympus Has Fallen. Olympus Has Fallen knew what it was. It was a throwback to 80s, 90s action movies when presidents were badasses and we had some baddie, maybe it was the Russians, that F-yeah Americans had to bash up and kill. And it knew what it was. It was entertaining and it worked for what it was. And it was R-rated and it's really violent, full of action. This movie was PG-13, which worked for what it was, but yeah, it wasn't as intense, wasn't as realistic, wasn't as good as Olympus Has Fallen. And the first 30 minutes of this movie are so boring. The script putting this, Channing Tatum daughter, bad relationship, daddy issues, blah 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 blah. And somehow, for some reason, we go on a tour of the White House for some reason, a bunch of unnecessary characters, and it takes at least half an hour for the action to get going. And by the time the action does get going, it just sort of happens. Now, in Olympus Has Fallen, we had some, even though it was an 80s, 90s action movie, throwback, we did have some character moments. This tragedy that happened really early on, it's really important, and it feel like it affects the main characters severely. Whereas in White House Down, there's nothing there. Channing Tatum has the conversation with a squirrel. Yeah, squirrel. And it's really not funny at all. Yeah, Olympus Has Fallen, he chucks some one-liners, talks some shit. Yeah, you got behind him was really, Gerard Butler's Mike Banning was a really relatable character. John McClane, he was John McClane. And he also had this commentary on the current political scene, White House Down, current political scene, the influence of defense and government, blah 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 blah. And it didn't really work for the movie because the script wasn't written that well. And by the time we did get into the action, it didn't really matter for much. Channing Tatum did really well as John Cale. He's really grown as an actor. I really liked him in 21 Jump Street, G.I. Joe, and he's a really passable action hero. When he bashes people up and shoots people, you're willing him on. Yeah, Channing Tatum, Magic Mike. And Jamie Foxx plays the President James Sawyer, who's obviously based off the current president, Barack Obama. He's really smart, he's really well spoken, he's a bit idealistic. And Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx, they have a really nice chemistry, they work really well together. But some of the other characters, not really characters, it was sort of character descriptions. Channing Tatum's daughter, Emily Cale, played by Joey King, the little sister in Crazy Stupid Love, and the young Talia. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't lived in Dark Knight Rises. She was brave. She was smart. She had strength. She was full like rebellious and stuff. That when she was like 11, come on, you're like 11. You're not 21. You don't have to be that rebellious. Yeah, and yeah, it's the baddies. And now we move on to the baddies. Well, in Olympus Has Fallen, wanted to take over the White House. It was kind of easy, but you had some sort of sense that there were a lot of Secret Service agents that were putting up a big fight, and it just lost against a much better opponent. Well, whereas in this one, takes James Woods and like 10 mercenaries to take over the White House. They're like 5 Secret Service agents, and they do it like that. And James Woods plays the most over the top, cliched baddie, and his motivations are so murky. He's doing this, or is he doing that? Or is he doing this, or is he doing that? And Aussie Jason Clarke, gotta have our Australian pride, plays another one of the lead baddies, Emil Stentz. You don't really get to know much about him. We don't really know what he's doing this for. And he's just the guy to order people around. He's like, oh yeah, you go there, find them, I will kill them. That's his basic character arc. That's all we got. And this movie is so cliched, and Olympus Has Fallen was cliched, no doubt about that, but it was entertaining, and it worked for, and it did some sort of entertaining stuff with these cliches. It's so unoriginal. White House Down even has stuff from The Rock, Air Force One, Die Hard, Independence Day. We have all your character archetypes. You have the stern, no listening general, the woman agent who doesn't believe you, but then comes around to your side when you turn out to be right. And overall, it was over the top, entertaining in a mindless kind of way, but with added stuff that didn't really work. Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx did really well what they were given, but overall, White House Down, 2.5 stars.